So here in the bottom left hand position, spawning as the yellow Zerg player, it's Minato. And his opponent to the top right, the red Zerg player, Nerchio. Spawning on Frost, cross positions, ZvZ, and the winner of this best of 3 will advance forward into the finals, where there's 75 euros on the line, a spot in the monthly finals where 600 euros is on the line, and just generally a bit of cool times. So keeping a close eye on what these two are going to be doing. For the moment, no early pulls, which makes sense. It is a 4 spawn position map, and therefore you don't want to be doing anything too crazy when you don't know where your opponent could be appearing from. Meanwhile, not too much else is really going on. Both players just going up to 15 drones at the moment. Just keeping a close little peek to make sure anything else could be coming out, but no. Spawning pool first is going to be coming from Nerchio. That's pretty much it, where Minato is going to be going for a hatchery first. 2 different builds. They end up at a pretty similar point as long as Nerchio adds in his hatchery fairly soon. And that's because of the earlier queen, although if he leaves it too long, it won't be ideal. Probably shouldn't add in another drone before getting his hatchery down, and there we go. Pulling that drone now, so should be adding that through. And now, these two roughly will end up in the same place. Although, a gas a lot earlier for Minato. That means that he's going to have access to speed significantly sooner, and therefore get himself into a nice spot. So why do these two builds end up in a similar spot, despite the spawning pool coming out a lot sooner, and the hatchery coming out a lot sooner for each player? It's because of the queens. Nerchio will have 1 queen quicker than that of Minato, whereas Minato will have a 2nd queen up slightly quicker. So long term, they end in a similar-ish position. Economically, at least. In terms of defensiveness, obviously, we see that Nerchio does have 2 lings already in production, so he can come and scout, come and try and chip away at anything, and also be able to flub with units should there have been an early pull, as he hasn't been able to scout his opponent for the moment. So you may be thinking, why have these two diverted their overlords without scouting the bottom right? The reason is because the overlords bumped heads up in the top left, and since they both got to the same position at the same time, you can deduce they both came from one base to the right. And you know your opponent isn't spawning down here, because that would be cross spawns for them, and you know they're not spawning here, so therefore they must be spawning down in the bottom left. Simples. So Ling's going to meet just by the natural ramp. This is Nerchio's first scouting information. Comes in, going to know that that natural base was sooner than his, and it would have been a hatch first. And now he's got some different options of how to deal with it. He also gets a nice little peek at a baneling nest getting started. That is a good scout. Of course, we see that speed is on its way for both sides, and Minato, playing some cool mind games, cancels the baneling nest. And with that being stopped, Nerchio now getting his own baneling nest out, could be running into some interesting positions. Really interested to see what Minato is going to do here. This could be very exciting times. So, Nerchio assumes that his opponent is going Ling Baneling. Why wouldn't he? It seems the most likely course of action when you've seen a spawning pool, a gas, and also a Baneling nest in production. You wouldn't generally expect it to be cancelled. Meanwhile, we've got Minato now trying to get a little bit of scouting information. Will run his Ling past, gets the confirmation that that is a Baneling nest, and that his opponent has fallen for his ploy. +1 ground carapace on its way through. And another evolution chamber on its way as well. The carapace upgrade is pretty cool. The reason for that is because it means that in Zergling on Baneling fights, Banelings require 2 detonations in order to kill Lings. And that may not sound too significant, but it means that Zerglings can actually trade pretty effectively up against Banelings. And as such, Nerchio, without knowing that his opponent cancelled the Baneling nest, could be running into a few problems. +1 melee attack is also coming through here. The other advantage of this build is it does allow you to tech up exceptionally quickly into Ultras in the late game. You've got very good upgraded Ultras, and on the ground, there's pretty much nothing in the Zerg arsenal that deals well with Ultralisks. And it's that simple. Nerchio has his own +1 missile attack coming through. But what he may not have actually yet seen is the 3rd base of his opponent. Hasn't yet scouted. Minato has, however, though, scouted that Nerchio's 3rd is on its way through. That is a brilliant scout for him, and it's what triggered his own 3rd base to come through, I believe, since it's a tad later. Another evolution chamber is now in production. This will complete the wall off with the aid of the queen, which is quite nice. Will help stop these lings from being able to do too much damage. And this is to buy time. Without these two upgrades, Minato is at a severe disadvantage to Nerchio, with only lings up against Ling Bailing. His third, almost certain now to be forced to cancel. Nerchio is going to try and get it, but to see so many lings there from Minato is going to come back. So Minato, for the time being, able to save that. Nearly walks into a Bailing, able to back away from it safely though. +1 Carapace, 5 seconds away from completion. Nice little takedown of the Bailing there. +1 melee attack, bit further off, but now with an upgrade lead, we see Minato posturing to be very aggressive. A lot of defensive Bailings are coming through. And even though you can take some hits, you can't take humongous hits, which is what we currently see go down here. Bailings starting to get taken out, just nice and slowly. We've got a couple more Bailings coming from behind though, and a few more adding in there. 5 Bailings in total, that's some big detonations. And with the roaches as well, Nerchio able to deal with this for the time being. So a lot of lings went down there, a couple of Bailings were traded as well. But it's worth noting that Minato is only trading minerals for gas, and that is an effective trade. Unfortunately for him though, Nerchio does have roaches and road speed on its way through, giving him a pretty good army. If he gets up a critical mass of roaches, it becomes very difficult to engage against them with lings alone. And roaches become more effective against zerglings the higher the number becomes. And that's due to the way they clump up. It reduces their surface area. While all the roaches can engage, not all the lings can engage all the roaches. And that makes things a bit more problematic, especially if we see some good Bailing hits come down. So a few roaches getting caught out of position here with a +1 melee attack. These lings do actually deal a significant amount of damage to roaches, as we're seeing now. A couple of Bailings are morphing in, but there's just too much here for the moment for Minato to try and push in against. He's adding in more lings as well as the 2-2 upgrades. That third evolution chamber purely there to just try and defend what is coming through. We've got a couple more lings making their way across, but this is actually quite a sizable number of zerglings, 53 of them. Bailings, 3, could be quite problematic, and that's why we're seeing Minato pull back yet again. So he's still being slightly cautious, trying not to take any massive trades as of yet, knowing that those Bailings are such a threat. He avoids the force from Nerchio moving out at the moment though, and is just going to look to go and attack Nerchio's third. But has this left him a tad too vulnerable back at home? Well, he's definitely going to get the kill on the third hatchery, but can he do much more than that? There's roaches defensively, and they should have to be completely off the wall off now, so it's going to be very difficult for anything to be done there. The roaches for Nerchio now pushing on forward, a couple of Bailings on their way through, 1 detonates instantly, 2 more will detonate, and that leaves a big group of roaches here. They need to tuck up against the wall as best they can. Meanwhile, roaches at Nerchio's natural base able to defend against the push for the time being. Drones now getting pulled and things looking very good. GG, well played, and Nerchio is going to win map number 1 of this best of 3.